Hello, good friends. I want to look at the story of Jaja of Opobo. I don't want to use the term great because of what it means. Horrible personalities throughout history have had the moniker great attached to their names. So I'm not going to attach great to Jaja, but he was a very important and, if I may say, great man. Jaja was an Igbo boy who grew up in the part of Igbo land that we would call Imo now. The story goes that he was captured by slave raiders and enslaved, shipped to parts of what we call the Niger Delta today, inhabited by our neighbors who are non-Igbos. Another story of success, just like Olaudah Equiano's story. He worked very hard under his captors, became successful, and at a stage, he became the head of the house. The family structure of that part he went to, of the people he went to, was completely different from the Igbo family structure. The Igbo family are a group of people that are related or people that join them, but in the case of this other group, it's not exactly like that. They assimilate and absorb people. So Jaja rose and became the head of this family. The most interesting thing that we should point out about the story of Jaja was that in the 17th, 18th centuries, most people who became very wealthy engaged in very gross things like slave dealing, or they were kings and emperors. Some other people made money, but the people that made money by working very hard were not the majority. Jaja was one of those that made money by working very hard. He became a very prominent trader. He dealt in palm oil. And he was powerful. He was strong. The world was very harsh then. The British were muzzling in, using their armed forces to muzzle out the competing traders. Of course, Jaja had to be armed in order to face the competition. He had war canoes. The British had warships. They had soldiers. They had machine guns. But in the markets, Jaja did far better than them. If you look at Igbo annals and British annals, the story is subdued. The British authors hardly write or mention those competitors that Jaja did better than. What they usually wrote was that he outdid his competitors. They usually failed to mention he outdid his British competitors. Well, he undersold them, oversold them, became so wealthy. They noted themselves that in the 17th century or 18th century, I can't remember exactly, but certainly not in the 19th century, Jaja was worth over 250,000 pounds sterling. The British did not know how to deal with this son of Igbo land. They made up charges against this man, exiled him to the Caribbeans. They captured Jaja, exiled him to the Caribbeans. After some years there, they said they had pardoned Jaja. On his way back, he died at sea. this great son of Igbo land, died at sea. Interestingly, I learned, and that was today, that an Igbo Dr. Kumsia warned him to be careful. An Igbo Dr. Kumsia, whom we call Dibia, is exactly like what Samuel was while operating as a seer. You know, Samuel operated as a seer and as a prophet. If you go to the book of First Samuel, read up on that personality that Saul, before he became king, went with his servant to meet when his father's asses were missing. That figure was Samuel, and that was exactly the Igbo Dibia. The Igbo Dibia, to the extent that the king-to-be and his servant worried about what we call a guafa. If you go to see an Igbo Dibia, you have to give him a token. That token is for divining. Saul inquired of his servant, "We don't have any money again. What do we do?" The servant said, "Don't worry, I have a coin for the man of God." We were told, Emmanuel Chiadi told me today, that an Igbo seer warned Jaja, and Jaja did not take adequate care, and that was why he died. That was why he was captured, exiled, and he died. I am making these videos so that we will become educated again. We don't have the networks that some people have. We don't have media. We have not invested in media. And that is why our stories fall by the wayside. I'm asking for a favor. Please share these videos. Ask your friends to subscribe. My promise is that I will be dishing out these stories that are important to us. Think of what I just talked about now. Jaja was an Igbo boy. For some years, he became a Caribbean. If he had not been pardoned for not committing any offense, he probably would have been Jamaican, Barbadian, Dominican, Haitian, by now 100% Igbo as I am. But if we don't connect these dots, how do we know that the transatlantic, the triangular trade actually, how can we really make sense out of it if we don't fill in the gaps, see the individuals that made up that triangle, that made that trade to be called the triangular trade? So these stories are important, and my promise is that I'll keep on bringing them up, try my best to tell them, and as I have said, share the video, ask your friends to subscribe, and let us continue to grow. The more we know, the greater our communities will be. Thank you.